what's very, very important to mention that the information provided in the discussion regarding psychological sensitive topics is for general educational purposes only. So by any means should not be considered as a professional advice or substitute for a professional therapy. This is a very, very important disclaimer to be mentioned. And this being said, I think we can start tackling the topic for today. We decided to center our discussion around the metaphor, and in order to welcome this metaphor, we invite you to read and reflect a bit upon this quote, which belongs to Anais Nin. And the time came when the risk to remain tied in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. And in order to make it more meaningful and relevant for each of us, we kindly invite you to share with us in the chat some of your thoughts on this quote. And we also invite you to guide your answers by some questions. What thoughts you have reading this quote, or what do you think it's keeping you stuck in a bud? What do you need to blossom? What do we need in order to blossom? What could support us to blossom? Then fruit, and then nourish others, nourish life itself with our fruits. As I shared, we decided to develop this topic of blossoming in order to illustrate the personal growth. And our intention is to support through our webinar or start a self-exploratory journey. The workshop is intentioned to be a gentle touch upon the surface of a self-exploration process. And together we decided to take a look both at some external factors and internal factors that influence our blossoming and our evolution. We will answer some of the questions you addressed in the sign-up form, and the unanswered questions and some other resources we will comprise in journal, which will be sent to you by Monday. The journal will contain some guidelines, some guiding questions, and both some resources. So might be considered a coaching tool or a blossoming tool. But coming back to the question we addressed, some of the visible and invisible factors which keep us stuck in a bud, and some of the factors we thought of were low self-esteem. And indeed, many of you asked about how could we increase our self-esteem. One of the first answer which came into my mind when I read this question was an answer which I got from one of my mentors while volunteering as a psychology student. And he used to say, there's an academical answer, which I will not give to you right now, and there's a common sense answer, which is, in order to have a higher self-esteem, you have to believe in yourself. And in order to believe in yourself means to be honest to yourself, and means to keep the promises you make to yourself. So in order to improve our self-esteem and to stronger believe in ourselves, the first step would be to have an honest look in the mirror, stay honest to ourselves, and keep the promises we do to ourselves. This is very, very simple. But the first question, the first answer which came into my mind reading the question which you sent us. But another perspective which could be more technical and more at hand, is one that Theo can share with us. And it's a very, very efficient coaching tool. So Theo, I invite you to share with our friends here the coaching tool we discussed about earlier.
Thank you, Delia. Yes, so this topic of self-esteem and self-confidence is something that I see a lot of people wanting to know more about. We saw that you addressed a lot of questions about self-esteem, and my clients also do. So something that I noticed really helps is to consider something that coaching calls the confidence competence loop. So we have confidence and we have competence. Both of these influence each other in a loop, because if I develop my competence, my skills in a certain field or in a certain direction, I automatically give a boost to my level of confidence. If I give a boost to my level of confidence, I'm then better equipped to continue working on my competence because I feel good and I'm like, okay, I can do this. So let's work a little bit more on my competence. And then when I see that I improve again, I feel better once more, meaning that I improve my confidence. So these two reinforce each other. And it's something really important to keep in mind here. Competence doesn't necessarily have to be in the field where you are a little bit scared. So for example, if you feel a little bit like insecure when it comes to your job, it doesn't necessarily have to be that you only develop competence at your job. You can also develop competence in other areas. Maybe you learn how to cook better. Maybe you learn how to renovate a house. By the way, this is something I'm currently learning, and it's really helping my competence and my confidence in other areas as well. So this is something really important to keep in mind. Action and learning from results is something that really supports our level of self-esteem and self-confidence. So that would be the technique, and I will now pass over to Delia again.
Yes, thank you, Theo. Some other factors which we had in mind to share with you regarding behaviors or emotions which keep us stuck are victimization, trauma bonding, codependency, anxiety, depression, cultural scripts, transgenerational loyalty, and family system loyalty. There's also factors which are attributed to the environment or to some physical or psychological disabilities. So these are some of the elements we thought of, but of course, it's a personal responsibility to identify both internal and external factors which at the personal level can keep one person stuck. Blooming, as we see it, and personal development involves introspection, self-reflection, growth, in order to reach our full potential and live a fulfilling and meaningful life. It's a journey of self-awareness and self-acceptance, and it leads to a greater self-confidence, because this journey often means discovering unknown resources within, while taking responsibility and being brave enough to start the self-knowledge and self-reflection and introspection process. I might be extremely surprised to discover amazing resources I was not aware of within. And most often I'm not aware of some resources which I have because there are some other voices which don't belong to myself, which I hear diminishing those resources. So introspection indeed sometimes means meeting some of my shadows, but also means encountering amazing resources within. And blooming means becoming the best version of myself, and means being prepared to flourish and then to offer the world around me some nourishing fruits. As I said, it's a very, very personal responsibility. takes courage to start the self-reflection and introspection process and to tackle all those factors we mentioned beforehand. But the good news is that we don't have to go through all this alone. So yes, taking responsibility, it's my responsibility and it's in my power, but asking for support, it's again an option, and it's again my responsibility, and it's in my power, especially when feeling stuck means living and experiencing stress and other unpleasant symptoms like feeling depressed or feeling anxious. So the best solution in this situation is to approach a mental health specialist or specific support groups which might respond to the need, or specific support groups which might explore a topic which I'm interested in. Mental health specialist can be a psychiatrist, a psychologist, psychotherapist, and can support individuals who comes to counseling or therapy. It's important to differentiate between counseling or therapy, psychological education, and coaching as processes. So within this blooming journey, we strongly recommend to allow ourselves to be guided by mental health specialists, and depending on what or where do I feel stuck, to choose the appropriate specialist who could offer me guidance or therapy. Counseling or therapy, it's usually connected to mental health and to a specific diagnosis, which can be anxiety or depression or other mental health diagnosis. It's reparative in nature, and they are beneficial for the individuals seeking help with a wide range of mental health concerns, anxiety, as I said, depression, trauma, relationship issues, or personality disorders. Many times, psychological education, it's a process, and it's comprised in intervention protocol by therapists, and means teaching clients with mental health illnesses and their families how to deal with the illness and how to support the healing process. Psychological education is very important nowadays as a prevention factor. What we see around that people who access psychological education workshops or sequences more often identify mental health issues they struggle with earlier, or they identify it in their loved ones or in their communities. And this more free access to psychological education contributes to preventing the worsening of the mental health status of an individual, of a family, or of a community itself. When it comes to achieving some goals, or to learn some new skills, or to optimize some behaviors, coaching is more often the best tool. It has a developmental focus, and a coach can support individual growth by supporting the client to reach goals and achieve greater clarity with respect to steps needed to be taken in order to achieve these goals. So ultimately, blooming, it's about becoming our best version, but again, doesn't have to be a lonely process. So it's always wise to ask for support, and this kind of support can come from a mental health specialist, but what I hear very often around me, and it's nice to hear it from mental health professionals, that there's a certain type of complementarity when working in a group, in a support group or self-development group or self-knowledge group, and the individual psychotherapy or coaching. So these two go hand in hand and accelerate this process of blooming or becoming our self version, staying committed to a personal development process. It was not easy. It was not easy to choose one topic to explore it a bit more experientially, and we decided to choose culture, how culture can influence our blooming, our personal evolution. So focusing on culture as an element which can either support me or support my blooming or keep me stuck in a bud, we thought of creating these breakout rooms and invite you to share in triads in the next 15 minutes to share on how the cultural environment or how the culture is supporting our personal development or your personal development, or it is keeping you stuck in a certain point. So please take a picture of the questions. There are some guiding questions that we put in the slide, and please focus to identify during the activity at least one resource that you experience that it's supporting your blooming, and also something that's keeping you stuck. You feel that there's more potential there and you cannot explore it because culturally it's not necessarily supported. So
and while you take the picture, I will create the triads, the breakout rooms of 3. We talk about blooming and we talk about growth, but it's really important to keep in mind that this is not something which happens like this. It doesn't happen overnight. Blooming can take a really long time, and sometimes that time can be a little bit challenging. The process of blooming, of growing, is not linear. We will not always just go up, up, up in a consistent way. And we might have periods where we kind of feel like we're going back. Maybe we are challenged again. Maybe we are under a lot of stress. And because of that, we are falling back into some old traps, into some old traumas, into some old limiting beliefs, and so on and so forth. Or perhaps we have quite strong anxiety about something, and that is what's overwhelming us. But it's really important to have compassion for ourselves and say, it's okay. I can take this time where things are not quite right, and I can allow myself, give myself the space to keep on building from there. The second really important principle is that living is a choice, and blooming or blossoming is intentional. Because aligning yourself with your mission, with your vision, with your values is what will help you to zoom out from difficult situations, from moments where you feel really stressed and anxious and lost in details, to zoom out and reconnect to what's really important to you, your mission, your vision, your values. And we will do a practical exercise in a moment about values. I just want to add one more thing, that, like I said earlier in the workshop about the confidence-competence loop, in order to increase our confidence, in order to boost our self-esteem and to really reach our professional and personal growth, like goals, it's really important to keep taking action, to keep doing concrete steps, even if it feels scary. There might be moments where we do only a little bit, maybe 10% of the 100% that we wanted to do. That is still a step forward, especially if we feel anxious or triggered or really scared. Taking action when you're scared is one of the biggest reflections of courage. Courage is not just doing something and not feeling anything in the process. So really, really important to keep in mind this. And now I will invite you to do another experiential exercise in breakout rooms. It will be an exercise that will help you discover your core values. And what I would like to ask you to do is to think about, here I wrote 3 situations, but also for time concerns, you can also think about 2 situations from like recent past, where you are very happy and successful, and then 2 situations where you are very unhappy or unsuccessful. And a disclaimer here, don't think about situations where something really traumatic happened, like, for example, someone's death. Because that is something else. Think about situations maybe at work where you felt really annoyed or frustrated with someone or something, or a situation with a friend or in your romantic relationship where you were really annoyed and frustrated. Or something positive, like a success that you had at work, or something positive that happened on a trip, on a holiday with a friend. And then in your pairs, you will go in breakout rooms in groups of 2, discuss about what was common in these situations. What did the happy situations have in common, and what did the unhappy situations have in common? And then try to extract your core values from there. So maybe you will discover that in both situations where you were happy, the element that was common was the connection that you had with somebody else, like authentic, meaningful connection that you had with somebody else. And that perhaps is one of your core values. And of course, have a dialogue with your partner from the pair. You will have about 10 minutes to do this in the breakout room. Perhaps you can also take a screenshot of the slide or take a note, just so you remember what you have to talk about. And then we will come back to the larger group and have a debrief, where we will talk about the importance of core values and answer any other questions that you might have. So the reason why we wanted to invite you to reflect on your core values is because the more we live life in accordance with our core values, the happier we are, the more fulfilled we are, and the easier it is to bloom, to find satisfaction. And most people tend to have about 2 or 3 core values that are stable over time. So even though you might maybe slightly change the importance that you give to certain values in different periods of your life, also as connected with your needs, still, most people have kind of stable core values. And the thing is, we might say that, like everyone will agree that love is good, connection is good, growth is good, learning is good, flexibility is good, and all these things. But it's usually 2 or 3 that have a stronger impact on you than the other ones. The other ones are kind of like, nice to have. But the other 2 or 3 tend to be really connected with your core, and they bring you the most happiness and fulfillment. That's why I said here that basically careers or relationships where these core values are reflected the most, they bring us the most fulfillment. And something that I want to kind of bring into this group as a resource is the idea of being intentional and committing ourselves to actions that align with these 2 or 3 core values. It's really, really important to be mindful and aware and to say, okay, now that I discovered, for example, that my core values are, like Bianca said, achievement and connection. What can I do every day, maybe 2 or 3 actions that will help me to live these values? Maybe you can say, okay, I will take time to call my best friend to connect. And I will spend some time working hard to improve my skills at work, which will help me with the achievement part, okay? Or if you value freedom, you might say, I will take half an hour in the evening or 1 hour in the evening where I don't plan anything in my schedule and I can just be spontaneous. So try to be intentional, try to make a plan and to make sure that you really experience and feel these core values every single day. It's really important, and it will be one of the biggest factors that will help you to connect to that blooming process, to do what's up to you, to keep building there, to keep growing there. And then, of course, the other factors, the other support systems and everything else that we will send you as well in the journal will be a multitude of other resources, professionals who can help you, other self-awareness and self-reflection questions or exercises. The more, the better. But this is something that's under your control, and you can do it every single day.